So what we are working with right now are mostly line drawings. And you'll notice with my drawing that I was laying things out. So some of my lines are very light and some of my lines look more purposeful. Now that I'm going to go through and render everything, I can start to clean up all of my kind of hairy lines, as we've called them before, and making those like more purposeful. When we're going through and doing rendering, generally I use different colors. I don't usually use one color. You can use one color. It tends to make it a little more cartoony and flat. But what's most important about rendering is kind of adding some depth or volume and also making sure that everything is consistent. So right now, the first part of consistent that I'm going to do is I'm going to go and clean up my edges and make sure that they're nice and tight and sharp and they're there. I'm going to go through and I'm going to start to color in my areas. And I follow the contours of something. So since I'm doing trees, those are kind of roundish and organic shapes. And so they have a lot of curves and just nice spirally kinds of lines. And that'll make it look a little bit more. Now I'm adding a little depth in by making some of these areas darker with that colored pencil. The one thing I can say, the consistency, we are working for a saturation of color, which means that it is a very green. Like you're not seeing a lot of the paper coming through. We are seeing some pencil lines, but they're all intentional and they're kind of following the contours. Sometimes when we color stuff in, it's like we just kind of forget that how they would look naturally, and we just sort of color what's the most convenient way to do it. You know, turning the page just so that we can get a straight line up along that edge and like that. But right now what I'm interested in is like a full saturation of color and making everything look consistent. So I'm going back through, and in some of these areas that I want to be lighter, I'm laying down some more color that is a lighter green. As we talked about, I'm going to go back through and actually I can show you the flat color one that I've already done too. These are all drawings that I had done for my other classes. This is the flatter line drawing, and like I said, it's very cartoony, but when it comes to it, all of the color along there is consistent. I went through and I outlined this in marker, and you can use marker and color pencils. Like even if I put down like a green marker underneath my green, if I let it dry completely in between, I can go back over and put my color pencils over it, and it really is a nice kind of quality to it. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to start to render some more areas of this. And as I said, we are looking for a consistency of color and just that nice lush green. So I'm going over, now I'm going to do along my edges with a little bit of the darker green, and I'll do something in the interior with that as well, and get everything handled. These color pencils are really nice because they will get a bunch of, they'll lay down really nice. But even the Crayola color pencils that we had at school are nice quality as well. But what we do is a kind of a process called cross hedging. So I can put a bunch of lines going down one way and then a bunch of lines going down in a different direction over the top of it. And it will start to make everything a little bit more richer and fuller. And as I said, inside of your photo editing software, there's a thing called saturation, and that it will make the colors really, really vibrant if you use that. So when we are going through and doing this, we are taking this line drawing now and we're doing, like I said, what's called, when you're coloring it in really nicely, it's called rendering. So when we're going through and doing all of this, I want you guys to pay attention and get some nice color going on here. I'm going to pause for a little bit as far as talking over this goes, but you can see that's a nice, bright, vibrant green. And I'm going to go through and continue to fill in the rest of it. This video does have like a whole segment of me coloring the whole thing in. That I'll probably put into a time lapse for you guys later on. But this is the beginning of it, and we just want to make sure that we've got some nice bright colors going on and everything is looking purposeful. All right, if you have any questions, again, you're more than welcome to chat them to me. I'm not sure. Now I'm going to get into doing one of the square areas in the red, in the oranges and reds. And I'm obviously making my edges nice and tight now. And I'm going to have to do a little bit to blend that green into the red at that point, into the reddish orange at that point. But again, going over it in one direction, and then I'll go over it in a different direction, and I'll tighten that up, and I'll pay attention to follow my contours, which has something to do with sharp angles and straight lines.